Thank you. If you would please remain standing for a moment of silence in memory of the 9 persons who lost their lives at Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina. Thank you. Clerk, would you please read the message, the notice, and call the roll?
June 23rd, 2015. Please be advised, this meeting is being taped for video and audio broadcast. Assisted listening devices are available. Mr. Bonifant.
Here.
Mr. Hempstead.
Here.
Mr. Anacone.
Here.
Mr. Kimmel.
Here.
Ms. Stewart.
Present.
Ms. Melendez.
Here.
Mr. Watts.
Present.
Ms. Bowman.
Here.
Mr. Sims.
Present.
Mr. Kites.
Here.
Ms. Maggio.
Present.
Ms. O'Toole-Jindurko.
Here.
Mr. Petrini.
Here.
Mr. Igneri.
Here.
Mr. McCarthy.
Here.
15 present.
15 present, we have a quorum. First item of business is the acceptance of the minutes from the regular meeting of June 9th, 2015. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. McCarthy. Any corrections, deletions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Abstain.
I'm sorry, Mr. Iannacone abstains.
Two abstains.
Two
abstentions.
And Mr. Igneri abstains, okay. Now we got that straight. Public participation?
Catherine Snedeker.
Hi, my name is Catherine Snedeker. I'm coming before you again to talk about concussions in the youth in Norwalk. The item that's on is number 4 for dedicating the Norwalk guidelines to a Norwalk youth that lost his life to a head injury. I did give you some handouts of Jonathan Brown, who's a really great kid. I don't know if any of you ever met Jonathan Brown. He's a really great kid. There's a story about him, and his family is in agreement that we could dedicate the guidelines in his memory. He was killed at age 20 from a head injury riding a dirt bike, not in Connecticut, but he played sports and was very involved in Norwalk. The other thing I handed out is a flyer that says, when the Connecticut concussion law failed to protect the majority of Norwalk children, the city of Norwalk stepped up to the plate. And that basically shows that before the Common Council and the Recs and Park Committee with Mike's help passed the Norwalk guidelines, only 1 out of 11 kids in Norwalk was covered in concussion guidelines or concussion protections. And now with the guidelines that were passed this spring, we added 7 more, 7 out of 11 kids are now covered. So it really made a huge difference, and Norwalk got a lot of press in the concussion world. We're the most progressive city in the country now. I've not found another city that has guidelines. Some of them are talking about them, but we were actually able to do it in Norwalk. So I really wanted to thank the Common Council for that, to trust me and Mike and the committee that we knew. And we had absolutely no complaints from all the youth sports. We think that we trained over 300 youth sports coaches this spring. And that's across baseball, soccer, lacrosse. I think that field hockey. So basically, every coach this spring that went onto Norwalk Town Fields did a half-an-hour concussion education course. Parents were given a flyer and signed off that they were aware of concussion guidelines. And I had so many parents through Facebook and through me that, hey, because of the guidelines, I noticed something about my kid. We did get a report of one child they thought was a concussion, which wasn't. But everyone's really pleased, and we're excited for the fall to add in soccer and add in football. So again, thank you to the Common Council for voting that in. And the final sheet is the concussion count that we've been doing in the schools. And these are the concussions that have been reported to the school nurses. I added 2 more on today. But out of the schools, all the students in the district, there were 111 concussions this year. Now, honestly, that number is probably 3 times as great, but the ones reported were 111. And it shows, we'll all talk about football. There were 7 concussions in football in between the 2 high schools, and that was out of about 130 boys playing football. There were 4 volleyball concussions out of about 30 girls playing. So I think we're unfairly looking at football. And if you look overall, there were more non-sports concussions reported than sports. So I always really want to support sports, support athletic trainers in the high school, thank the nurses that did a really great job with this, and Norwalk pulling it together. So I'm really proud. And this project has been accepted by the American Academy of Neurology to present at their sports concussion conference in July. So I'll be going there and talking about what we did in Norwalk. So I want to thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Snedeker. You've really committed yourself to this, and you have a passion, and we appreciate that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And so the ask tonight is that we dedicate this project in the name of Jonathan Brown.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Naomi Oppman?
Hi, everybody. I'm Naomi Ottman. I'm going to be really quick and make it to the point. This is my first time doing this in Norwalk.
Could you state your address, please?
110 Ledgebrook Drive, Norwalk, Connecticut, 06854. This is just a real quick request. It's nothing negative about the Boy Scouts. On the agenda, there's a thing that the board's going to approve the Boy Scouts to use Taylor Farm Park. And my only request is that the park be given back to the residents of Norwalk in the same condition that it was given to them. The last people that had it, which was the Greenwich Kennel Club, it did not come back in that condition. And I did send a letter to the head of the Parks Department and everything. I'm not going to address it now, but I'm just asking. And also, if the people that come and use it, which again, I don't think it's going to be an issue with the Boy Scouts, but just in general, the people who use the park, can they please be respectful of the Norwalk residents? Thank you.
Thank you. That's all that is signed up. Is there anybody else that wishes to address the council? Thank you. There are no resignations and appointments for this evening. Under my remarks, I'd like to first acknowledge the presence of Troop 14 from the Greek Orthodox Church on West Rocks Road. Boy Scouts, there's PAC 67, is it? Did I get that right? 97. PAC 61 and Troop 97 as well. So welcome. Hopefully you have a good experience here. So thank you for being here, and thank you for bringing the young people into the government setting so they can see how the city runs. On Thursday, June 25th, the Fairfield County Business Journal, the 40 Under 40 Awards at the Maritime Aquarium in Norwalk. Several Norwalk individuals will be honored, including our own corporation counsel, Mario Coppola. So we congratulate you. Norwalk is a bronze sponsor of this event. Saturday, June 27th and Sunday, June 28th, celebrate the 3rd Annual Arts Festival at Matthews Park. Admission is free. Over 150 original artists, special exhibits, demonstrations, children's art activities, food, and live music. It's a showcasing for Lockwood Matthews Mansion, Stepping Stones Museum, and the Center for Contemporary Printmaking. It's open from 10 o'clock to 5 p.m. each day. It's a wonderful family event, so if you're around and you have some time, come on out and enjoy the festivities. Independence Day is Saturday, July 4th, and the Norwalk Fireworks will be held on July 3rd at Cat Pasture Beach with a rain date of July 5th. Thank you and congratulations to all the volunteers who made the Hands for Life CPR training possible. Despite the rain, hundreds of citizens of all ages stopped by to take advantage of the hands-only CPR training, and also to take about 5 minutes to learn how to use an automatic external defibrillator. Both of those, as the Boy Scouts certainly know, are life-saving processes. The hands-only CPR has been proven to be very effective, and certainly the AED is a lifesaver when somebody's heart gets out of rhythm. Item number 6, I will be proud to hand the gavel over to Council President Jerry Petrini for the next meeting, July 14th, as I will not be in town. That is all that I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to get to the consent calendar in a minute, but I'm pretty sure, Mike, tomorrow is that our first car show down at?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yeah, you know, and a concert and everything. It's supposed to be a beautiful, beautiful night.
Is it Tim Curry tomorrow night?
Yeah. That's going to be awesome, and I heard the weather's going to be a lot better than it is out there today. So join us down there. That's a great, great thing. And also, I think somebody told me that the splash pad, that's like up and running and got a little.
It's awesome.
I believe
We
when you
have-
run
I've
into our
gone on
town clerk,
Saturday.
Were you
Rick
under?
McQuaid, and ask him,
Rick
he
McQuaid
might get a little
tested it.
closer, huh?
Yeah, Rick tested it out just to make sure that it was working well.
And before I go to the consent calendar, and mostly for the benefit of our young guests here, and explain a little bit how the government works, I'm going to start going through a list of items that we have to talk about and pass. And when I say a consent calendar, I'm going to list things that I read. And what that means that all of the council people that are up here have agreed to approve these measures without any talk. And if you know how a lot of council people and politicians, we really love to talk, like I'm doing right now. But so this will save a lot of debate. So anything that I read, at the end, we're going to vote on all those as a block. Anything left over that we didn't pass on consent, it's our time to talk about those issues. So with that being said, our consent calendar starts with 7A, that's Recreation and Parks. 1 is to authorize the mayor enter an agreement with Team Jesse Foundation for a 9/11 Heroes Run, Travis Manu, to be held Saturday, September 19th from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the Cranberry Park Pavilion. Setup's going to take a little bit earlier in the day, tear down a little bit later. On that Saturday, estimate about 250. 7A2, and this will probably spark up our gentlemen out in the audience. It's authorized the mayor to enter agreement with the Connecticut Yankee Council Boy Scouts of America for the use of Taylor Farm for a Scout Field Day recruitment camping to be held Friday through Sunday, August 28th through August 30th. Setup is going to take place on that Friday, and they're going to tear it down no later than noon on Monday, August 31st. They estimate over 100. 7A3 has to do, and I'll do A and B, it has to do with our mayor to authorize the mayor into young developers, and this is for a project, the roof replacements for the men's and women's bathroom facilities at Calf Pasture Beach. The sum should not exceed $98,500. There's a bunch of accounts so noted, and B has to do with change orders on that same project that should not exceed $10,000. 7A4 under Parks, and we're going to add, be it resolved that the Norwalk concussion guidelines be dedicated in memory of Jonathan Brown. Moving on to finance and claims, 7B, 1, 2, and 3, it's all our claims for the month, our narrative on tax collections, and our monthly tax collections report. Number 4, under finance, is going to be authorize the purchasing agent to issue purchase orders to the lowest authorized reseller for the procurement of a Cisco LAN switch for the Norwalk Police and City Hall for an amount not to exceed $50,000. There are accounts noted, and this is a budgeted IT capital item, so there is no special appropriation required. B5, it's going to authorize the purchasing agent to purchase orders to the lowest authorized Verint Autolog partner reseller for the turnkey upgrade to the Verint Autolog communications recording system at the Norwalk Combined Dispatch. That should not exceed $23,500, and this too accounts are noted, and this will not require a special appropriation. 6 is to authorize the purchasing agent to issue purchase order in accordance with the city procurement guidelines for the supply of personal computers, workstations, laptops, ruggedized data terminals, tablets, printers, and obsolete asset disposal according to the city's IT department specifications. This amount should not exceed $158,968. Accounts noted, and this too is a capital item, no special appropriation. Number 7 is to authorize our mayor to execute a contract with the Connecticut Interlocal Risk Management Agency, that's CIRMA, for total management of the city's workman compensation and heart hypertension programs. It's going to be for a 5-year period starting this July 1st, ending June 30th of 2020. And the cost is per claim based on the following schedule, and it states for medical only record claim only, and it also has an account listed. 8 is authorize the mayor to execute general liability, automobile liability, employee benefits, a whole bunch of insurance policies coming up. And that's going to be for a 3-year period, beginning July 1st, with the Connecticut Inter-Risk Management Agency, once again, KIRMA, for an amount not to exceed $455,000, and that's going to be for the year of 2015-16, as account noted, couple accounts noted. 9 is to authorize our mayor to execute a commercial property and boiler and machinery insurance placement for the 2016 year with A.J. Gallagher for an amount not to exceed $467,466. There's a couple accounts there. This must be the day for insurance. Number 10 is insurance. That's going to authorize the mayor to execute an excess workman's compensation insurance placement for FY 2015-16 with HD Sigur, Inc. for an amount not to exceed $139,173. 2 accounts noted. Number 11, authorize our mayor to execute crime bond insurance placement for 2015-16 with HD Sigur for an amount not to exceed $4,909. Accounts noted. 12, authorize the mayor to execute flood insurance placement for 7 separate locations and placement the FY 2015-16 with the National Flood Insurance Program. That's with Middlesex Mutual Insurance Company for a total not to exceed $63,068. Accounts are noted. And number 13 is to authorize our mayor to execute TULIP insurance placement for the 2015-16 year with Schaff Darby for a total amount not to exceed $8,000. And there's the accounts noted. We have 2 other items. I'm just good. It's under Corporation Council. I just want to be clear. Is item number 1 on consent or off consent? It's off? Okay. So we're going to move to Corporation Council, item number 2, and that's to authorize our mayor to execute any and all documents and instruments needed in connection with and to facilitate the city's purchase of property located at 127 Philo Street from El Madani Islamic Center of Norwalk, Inc., including but not limited to the residential real estate sales agreement. And that, Mr. Mayor, is our consent calendar for this evening, and I urge its adoption.
Thank you, Mr. Petrini. Consent calendar has been moved. Are there any requests for removal of any of the items? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. I guess now item 7C1, Mr. Petrini?
Actually, if I could read this, but I could either do it with Shannon or I even like, probably
it's
Mr.
an ordinance?
McCarthy, because
Yeah.
actually this came through DPW. If I'm
Oh,
not
it did,
mistaken.
okay.
Yeah, it's,
And I would rather, Dave has
Mr.
probably a lot of
McCarthy.
background on it.
so
Yeah.
I'll make the motion for 7C1. It's approval of access easement across the small corner of Webster Street parking lot substantially in the same form as the attached proposed easement.
The item's been moved. Discussion?
Yes, Mayor.
Mr. Sims?
I would like to actually maybe put forth a motion to have this tabled again. I spoke with several of the business owners. I spoke with several residents of that area, and as well as some of the churches like directly across from where this easement is. And no one is in support of this. No one wants this. They think this is a safety issue. It would further convolute the traffic over in that area. It would add further safety issues to residents that lives in the area and also that crosses the street to participate in the churches across the street as well. And the businesses over there, none of them are in support of it. So I think that we should table so we can have more of a public opinion on this and get some of the folks to weigh in on this a little further.
Mr. Sims, you're making a motion to table.
Correct.
Okay, motion to table is not debatable. Is there?
Withdraw that for a minute.
We want to
I'll
hold
withdraw
the
my
motion for a minute.
motion. I'll withdraw my
We're
motion.
going to withdraw just to.
Withdraw the motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'd actually like Mr. Coppola to speak on this, because I understand, and I was contacted as well, that some people are not in favor of this, but those are the same people, I believe, that sued the city asking for this. So I've got a problem, and I think it puts the city in a very bad position if we are not to move ahead with this as directed by the court. So if Mr. Coppola could give us the benefit of his
Mr.
knowledge.
Capola?
Yeah, everybody received the information from Brian McCann, Assistant Corporation Counsel, pertaining to this matter. I draw your attention to the stipulation for judgment, which is, again, an order judgment of the court. And paragraph 1, and this is in the packet about halfway through it, so some people rummaging through it. Page 1 of the stipulated judgment says that the court's order for temporary injunction, in this case, that provided the temporary easement over the Webster Street lot, shall be continued until such a time as the defendant and the city establishes legally and physically at its sole cost and expense a substitute way of ingress and egress from the plaintiff's parking lot to the Martin Luther King Boulevard. Said egress and access may be in substantial compliance with a certain plan titled, and that's the plan that the city's trying to implement here. So what happened was, the plaintiffs, which was that building adjacent to the Webster Street lot, filed a court action in which they requested a temporary easement over or access over the Webster Street lot, because I think around 1995 the city had installed a curb cut which prevented them from having direct access to their parking lot, where I believe they have about 15 parking spaces. So the court ruled in 2008 that they would have a temporary easement until the city found another way to provide them access. And the city went to great expense, time and effort, to create a plan which everybody agreed to. The business owners there agreed to in the stipulated judgment dated June 26, 2014, which the plaintiff's counsel signed on their behalf. So it was agreed upon that there would be a plan that the city would eventually implement to create direct access to their lot. Everybody agreed to that plan. And at some point in time, lo and behold, about a year later, the city decides to move forward with the plan. And now, some of those same people who are subject to the litigation, who agreed to it, are now saying, no, we actually don't want the city to go forward with it anymore. But by the way, we still want to keep our easement over the Webster Street lot. And that's just going to prevent the city from having future development there. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. I wasn't involved in the case directly, but again, there's a stipulated judgment right here, June 26, 2014.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. McCarthy.
As a follow-up question, if we were to approve this tonight, and these people were to come in tomorrow with an appropriate attorney in an appropriate way, and, I don't know what the appropriate legal term is, but to, give back the easement or, remove that easement across the Webster Street lot so the city wasn't at risk, would it be appropriate then to not go forward with this, even if we had approved it?
I think then at that point, yeah, we could have that discussion, but they don't want to do that. They want both. They want the easement, and they also now want to back out of, again, agreeing to the plan, which they agreed to as part of the stipulated judgment, June 2014.
Okay.
So the answer to your question is yes.
Mr. Watts first, then Mr. Petrini, Ms. Gianderco.
I'll defer to Mr.
And I'm just going to put a different spin on it another way. If we were to table this tonight and, put forward that they would have to come forward to, because obviously it's going to cost the city money to do all this. And I know we talked about this a few months ago and it's all been approved. And now we're revisiting again. I also got calls from somebody. And it's almost like, you can't have it both ways. Either we do the curb cut, and like you asked for with a court award, but with that, if you don't want us to do that, then you have to release us from this easement. My question, I guess, would be to the Corporation Counsel, if we were to table this tonight and then ask to bring this up back at DPW committee and have them show us a release at this point, are we hurting ourselves by delaying this another month? In other words, Mr. McCarthy, and I can respect that, and we might go that way, but would say, let's pass it, and if they come to us, we'll stop. I'm saying, and I don't know which way I'm gonna go with this, but if we were to table this, let them come into us first, and quite honestly, I got a feeling we're gonna put this off for 2 weeks, and nothing will probably happen. And in that case, then, I don't know which way would defer, but I'm asking you,
There's two issues you've raised, I think.
okay?
One is, would this impede the project if we were to table it? I think that maybe the chairman of the committee is probably in a better position than me to answer that question. I really don't know the answer to it.
I mean, it's like any other project in getting done. I mean, the contract's been awarded, we're not just, in this approval stage. So, I mean, I get delayed at 2 weeks is really only a 2-week delay in getting the work done. So I don't think it's,
The second issue I think you raised was, what would happen then with this request for them to give up the easement? They're not
They have
going
to.
to.
Well, then if-
I know, but it's been their position, they absolutely don't want to, they want both.
So you're more privy to that information, so at this point, maybe I see no reason for, well, okay, thank you.
Mr. Watts, did you,
You want to table it? I'm sorry. Okay.
Well, one of the reasons why I would support tabling it is someone dropped the ball for the representatives from that council district. I've advocated for this over and over again. It's really the corporation council to work with the people who represent that district to bring them up to speed. It's really the city's responsibility to brief them. So as they're fielding these calls, they actually can make a conscious decision and a well-thought-out vote. It's just the courtesy, just a courtesy. No, I'm saying if something was going down in your district, I think the city should take that extra step to brief the representatives of that district. And when you don't do that, and then you do it right here on the council floor, I think that we missed the opportunity. I think the corporation council here kind of missed the boat on this one.
If I could, sorry,
uh,
you're done.
You're not elected, sir, and I have the floor right now. I think that this is an opportunity for the corporation council to work with the leaders of South Norwalk and actually walk them through. They're not attorneys, to walk them through, so when they're fielding these calls, they could actually, communicate effectively with their constituents and have a meaningful dialogue and make an educated vote. But we may come back in 2 weeks and you guys may pass it. It's just a courtesy. If something was going down in your district, I'd support you too, if you didn't feel comfortable. Just a courtesy, might come back 2 weeks, and if there's nothing we could do, if there's no harm in it, I just ask as a courtesy for the people of South Norwalk to give them opportunity to make an educated vote. There's nothing wrong with that.
Ms. Jandurko and then Ms. Bowman? And then you can
Just one comment. This came before us a year ago. This is the last step of this process, and this has been going on. It's gone through all the different committees and commissions and organizations that it has to go to get to us here tonight, and we have the judgment in front of us. So there's been a year of courtesy. So 2 weeks doesn't seem like it's gonna do a lot when we've had more than enough time to review this and voice any concerns that we've had.
Ms. Bowman?
Well, when they contacted me, their initial concern was that it was scheduled, construction was scheduled to start on May 25th, and they didn't find, like DPW didn't notify them, and that is a clause or whatever in the stipulation that they be notified. So that was originally where, the issue began. So the markings were there, and it was scheduled to start on May 25th. They didn't know about it. So that was their first issue. So I think that now it's about a month later, so they are aware of it. But my other question was to you, Mario. Have they initiated their lawyer, and has their lawyer contacted you?
Yeah, they agreed to this, again, over a year.
I know they agreed to it a year ago,
They agreed to it a year ago, and so I guess to respond to you, I'm sorry, you're gonna say their
I was
lawyer.
okay, so if we table it for 2 weeks, the point, we would want, we would want you, I guess, to talk to their lawyer to see if they wanted to go back and change and request from the court to change the stipulation. So has their lawyer contacted you?
again, Assistant Attorney, Corp Counsel Brian McCann's been handling this, not me. It is my understanding that he has spoken numerous times to their attorney, and they are not willing to give up their easement over the lot. And Brian has made it clear that if they're willing to do that, then certainly we could entertain the discussion of not going forward with the plan. But again, as I say to everybody here, and as I know Brian said to their attorney, this was agreed to over a year ago. We're only here for a technicality. There's like one little piece of property that we need to get a further approval for with regard to an easement. Really just a technicality. That's the only reason we're back here tonight. This was agreed to back in 2014. And by the way, just as a statement to everybody in this council, anybody can reach me all the time, 24/7, 7 days a week. And there's many people on this council over the years, and Councilman McCarthy is smiling. He called me when I was on vacation in Canada for a few days. I always, and my wife will attest to this, I always pick up the phone. Everybody has access to my cell phone. I am available 7 days a week. If anybody ever has to call me on something, if anybody has a call from a constituent, a concern, all of you have access to me all the time. So I received no call from anybody on the council. The only thing I received at, I think like 5:30, 6 o'clock today was an email forwarded to me from Attorney McCann from Councilman McCarthy regarding, I think, some correspondences with a constituent. That was the only person that I heard from. Again, it was a couple hours ago this evening, and I responded immediately to Attorney McCann. So this was agreed to in June 2014.
Right, I understand that, but, well, we're all aware that they have changed their minds. So, I mean, so, these are citizens, they are taxpayers, they own businesses. So what can we do to help them out, accommodate them? We owe it to them to try to figure this out. I mean, if there is any way. They know that they agreed to it, but they are saying that at the time when they were having this argument, the booths were there or whatever. So I think I guess the city took their entrance, and then the booths were there. So when they were fighting this fight, they didn't want their customers to have to go through the booth. But then the booth was removed, so now they're saying that they're happy with what's there. So, I mean, do we need to, they've contacted me as well, so do we need to help them understand that now is the time to contact their lawyer? Or I'm just asking whether or not that's already been done.
Yeah, no,
and then do they know the next steps?
We've had discussions with their attorney. I mean, they're represented by counsel, so, if people were represented by counsel or calling our office, it's hard for us to speak. We really can't talk to them because they're represented by counsel on this matter. So we have to respect the fact that they're represented by counsel. Again, I know that Attorney McCann has spoken to their counsel numerous times, I believe over numerous months. I think that Councilman McCarthy and maybe even Councilman Janturco, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure your name right, have both been in contact probably more with Attorney McCann than I have on this issue.
Yeah.
Maybe
And
they could speak to it, I really don't know.
Well, what is their lawyer saying? Because, I know what they are saying, and do we know what their attorney is saying? Is their attorney basically saying the same thing that they're saying, that they don't?
Yeah, in an email that I received earlier today that included, it was a forwarded email that I think Attorney Coppola has seen by now, was saying that basically what Attorney Coppola has already said, that they want to maintain the judgment or easement against the city and just move forward, but that would prevent us from doing anything, and it's kind of like a sort of Damocles over the city's head, that if in 10 or 20 or 50 years there was a redevelopment project that involved the Webster Street lot, at that point they could say, okay, yeah, we'll give it back to you for $1 million. So that's what I'm trying to avoid. And I don't have a problem, and I understand the courtesy with the 2 weeks, but given that this has gone on for several years and they agreed to this settlement a year ago when the booths were already gone, I'm more leaning towards approve it, and if their lawyer wants to come forward in the next week or two, I don't believe this is going to start being worked on the next day, then, at that point, it's up to them to say, we'll release the easement, and then, the city can work to accommodate.
I agree with your point, and I'm glad you made it, that if we were to give them the easement, then if there's a future development there, we're gonna be paying a lot of money to get them to give up something that really they had no right to. So you do need to keep that in mind. It wouldn't be a problem for the city for future development. Certainly, if they're willing to give it up, even if this was voted on this evening, I mean, the project's already been voted on. This is just the easement that we need for this small certain area that was just determined to be necessary for an easement. If we agree to it tonight and, in the next couple of weeks, they say, we're willing to give up the easement, we could certainly try to work something out with them.
Mr. Watts?
This, I'll just go back to just the common courtesy thing. If you go ahead and pass it, people who represent the district are gonna vote no. Or maybe they may vote no. And, I just feel that the founders of the city set it up, a system of government where they have in-district people who represent in-district, and you have at-large candidates. And it was designed that the people who represent that area speak for the people that they represent. And no other legislative body would that even happen without consulting with the people who represent that district. If you're gonna build a bridge in some city or town or whatever, if it was a state, they're gonna consult with the people who represent that district to get the feedback. I just think that we're volunteers and we don't have a staff. We're probably one of the only legislative bodies that actually don't have people to help us do the job. If you look at other municipalities, they actually have people that help council people kind of sort through the stuff. We don't. So, as a courtesy, I just think that sometimes, whether it's a department head or city government can just make that one extra step. And just as a courtesy to say, this is happening in your district, do you understand what's happening? So you can be informed, so when the calls come, it's a two-way street, I would admit that. Okay, so a council member has to be willing to learn and be willing to seek the information. But at the same time, what is not okay is for representatives from other parts of the city to say, this is good for your district, or this is the way I feel, and not even take into consideration just a little bit more time to try to work it through. I just think that we can, and we should always try to work together and try to come up with ways in which we can respect individual districts, at the same time, work to keep the communication going. And if you pass it, okay, maybe you passed it. But at the same time, you're really alienating the people that actually represent the district. And it's only 2 weeks of a common courtesy. If you are gracious enough to offer a 2-week common courtesy, and you come back and say, you know what, nothing happened in 2 weeks, we have a little bit more information, I'm gonna pass it. But there's nothing wrong with giving the people who represent the area just a common courtesy.
Mr. Hempstead, you haven't spoken yet.
I got a couple questions, but I'm gonna ask the first one, the Corporation Council again, just more clearly. It's interested in a stipulated agreement from the judge. Are we held in anything like a contempt of court or anything like that if we don't pass that this evening or by a time certain?
No, because the specific term, it's a good question. The specific terms of the stipulated judgment provide that we'll implement the plan at such time as we are ready to move forward with it. So, no, you could give it, you could wait another 2 weeks and certainly not be in conflict with the court's judgment.
Right. Second part, I've got a couple, but the second part, has anybody from the other side on this case, the landowners, i.e., or the attorney, formally requested a meeting or anything up to the stage of the game?
It's my understanding that their attorney has had multiple conversations and/or correspondences with Attorney McCann over several months. And position of the city has been, you know, we agreed to this, and if you want to give up what you claimed in the case, which was an easement over the Webster Street lot, then we could have a discussion about not going forward with this plan. But essentially, they want an easement over the Webster Street lot. They're claiming it by necessity, and if we do this plan, then it's no longer by necessity. So it's a way to essentially get an access over the Webster Street lot, because they could claim that they don't have access to their own lot. And by doing this, we give them access to their own lot, and they lose the easement over the Webster Street lot. So that's what this is about. If they're willing to give up the easement over the Webster Street lot, I would certainly encourage the council to consider not going forward with this plan, absolutely. But if they insist on trying to keep that easement, which again is only a temporary easement, created out of necessity, because there is no other access to the lot, then I would suggest that the city not agree to give them that easement, you know, essentially in perpetuity. I think would come back to bite the city in a bad way if there's any future development of that Webster Street lot.
So there's nothing prohibiting the city from licensing a use to cross over? I know the city has done that with certain street ends for certain things, licensing agreements, certain other parcels versus an easement.
Here, the problem is this. There is a court, I think the problem with doing that is that there is a court judgment on the temporary injunction that they filed. I think it was August of '08, that they could have a temporary easement by necessity over the Webster Street lot. So unless you create another access point, they're gonna claim the right to that easement, unless we could get them to, again, agree that under no circumstances do they have that easement. But I think it puts the city in a place.
I guess I'm not clear. The settlement before us gives them the right to enter their property right from Martin Luther King Drive, their own driveway. Is that correct?
Actually, the settlement's not before you for voting on it tonight. This was voted on over a year ago by the council, about a year ago for the council.
Right.
What's before us is just this easement agreement.
I get that, but that gives them the ability. I think it's a very dangerous way that this came out, but that's what they want. You know, I'm surprised they never walked away from this when the booths were taken down 6 to 8 years ago, somewhere in that range, but they kept going with it. I don't personally have a problem, just saying for me, and I haven't talked to anybody else, kicking this off for a couple weeks. But on the same token, I'm at the end of 2 weeks, either the conversations have happened or not happened, they're agreeing to or not agreeing to, and we just move ahead.
Right.
I'm not looking to delay this forever. You know, I'm kind of like,
I agree.
if they're serious, send the message. They got 2 weeks to get their act together and see what the city can do. It'd be not an easement, but a license agreement, some way, you know, we're gonna allow you access in on a temporary basis and sign it year to year, so they don't really have any rights to it or something like that.
Well, I think just with regard to that issue, it still gives them rights. I think that you're still gonna have the problem if you ever wanna develop the Webster Street lot.
Right, now,
That's the problem. I understand that you're trying to find a creative solution, but as Councilman McCarthy pointed out, there's that concern about having to then negotiate with them about, you know, some sort of easement or then the license agreement. That's gonna be the problem.
Mr. Kimmel.
Yeah, I would prefer, when Mr. Sims makes the motion to table, if he could make it with a date certain, that you're asking for it to be tabled until the next regularly scheduled council meeting. In that case, it's very clearly defined that we'll deal with it in 2 weeks, no questions asked, and I'll support it if it's made with a date certain.
Mr. Sims.
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to table this discussion until July 14th, the next council meeting.
Motion to table this item until July 14th, the next council meeting. There is no, motion to table is not debatable. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? So carried.
To adjourn.
Wow. Motion to adjourn by Mr. McCarthy. All in favor? We should, balls in the court.
I completely understand that.
You know what's gonna happen?
The problem is,
But you know what?
can't give up.
I agree with
No, we
David.
can't give up easy.
You're just, it's not, we're not hurting. So sometimes you can't. This is